All right, so here it is, biology versus personality, okay? We've always had a problem with the superstar teacher. Martial arts is it. He can only have one gym because he can't replicate himself. He is the superstar.
The Storm Hunter WX weather app is free to download and use and provides you with warning of severe weather even before the National Weather Services issue alerts. This advanced weather app is an important tool for awareness of severe weather that I use every day. Download and use it totally free without in-app purchases on iOS or Android at the link below.
It doesn't transfer, and that's one of the hard things about martial arts is when you study a Japanese martial arts, it should be named Bob Smith was good at fighting. So that's what you're following as a legacy, because Bob Smith was a good fighter doesn't mean you are. Bob Smith was a good coach and teacher, you might be a good fighter, but there's no real legacy in that, all right? And then we have to remember at some point all the belts were made up, and somebody gave them to themselves. They're not real, they don't mean anything. Somebody had to make it up. Yeah, I know the whole history of it.
You don't need rules for keeping up pets.
That's right. So, you know, I have, 5 teaching degrees or a 3rd degree and above, and I just stopped doing it in the 90s because it didn't matter anymore. Because after that, what are they grading me on?
Adherence to the
How well I get their seminars full, I'll tell you the truth. You know, how many people I can put in seats. That's what I'm getting graded on. You know, some of them are good about, it's more like a professor, you know, publish or die, you know, create more. But it really had no value after a certain point, you know. So just kind of stopped doing it. And I'm not wrecking anybody else that does it, but several of my students outrank me with 4 or 5 degrees now, you know. So I'm 5th degree. It tells you something that I taught them. But I didn't find it useful because the UFC taught me what? Fighting was more important. The belt didn't protect me from my obvious flaws in methodology, and I had to fix that. See how all this happened? It was a brutal lesson for me, brutal. But I had a partner at the time, and we both watched the first UFC, and all I thought was, I'd seen the tapes about the Gracie Challenge, and I was worried, because I knew it was a possibility because I wrestled. And I knew I had a big advantage from wrestling. And then I went to a boxing coach to fix my hands, and I was killing everybody. So I knew there was a problem, but I was really loyal. It's a big problem. Too loyal. Loyalty without any discernment is not loyalty. It's just following. And then my partner sat there and watched Royce win, and I sat there and watched, and we came to 2 different conclusions. He said it will never happen, and I said I can't wait to do it. And it took us 6 years to dissolve our partnership, and it was brutal, and it ended up in court. Because that's the nature of that, but it's the best thing I ever did. You know, I wish him the best luck in the world. He hates me, but he'll be okay. So how does biology dictate who you are? Every day it does. Some habits can help you change biology because it rewards you. Good nutrition, good sleep changes how you feel. If you're sick or injured, it changes how you feel. But biology is biology. Stress hormones are the biggest problem that we have in shooting class, and they're not really addressed. Cortisol and adrenaline do not do good things for you. Those of you that don't sleep are full of cortisol, so you feel puffy, slow, and lethargic the next day. All police officers, all high-end military guys that don't get to sleep enough, they never looked ripped and buffed for this very reason, is they can't overcome cortisol. It is a stress hormone, and it's supposed to limit your ability to do things when you don't get enough sleep. It's one of the main reasons it exists. It's a protective mechanism, but what do? Fill up with liquid hate and just go past it. So it's really hard. Let's talk about flow hormones. All right, so these are all the things that happen when you get in a good state and you get in that transient hypofrontality, that beautiful moment of connection to what you're doing, and there's no sense of time. And you can look at these things, they're really cool. Every day you get dopamine kicks, mostly from your phones. They just published a study that actual intellect is lowered significantly by a phone sitting next to you because your attention is bifurcated. That's the problem. It's not the phone makes you stupid. It makes you can't pay attention. And we see it with young people especially. They'll be in a group of other people on the phone talking to somebody that's not there, doing a video at the same time. So they're getting all these rewards just like a gambler would get. There's no difference between this behavior and gambling because dopamine is the booster. It rewards you for the behavior, but the more you do it, the less dopamine you get. So any bad behavior has dopamine. It is a skill booster, and we like it. We like it a lot, all right? But when we were cactuses in the desert, we didn't get it as often. It was because I fed the family. because I survived the event, all right? Because I made a good decision and I didn't fall off the cliff like Bob did. Those were dopamine things, okay? Norepinephrine is energy. That's the wrong word, but Shelley is not the best on this part, and I am a horrible checker apparently, and I say it every class and I never tell her. Should be arousal level, attention, efficiency, and emotional control. Does that sound like a pretty good hormone? All right, and we see this severely lacking on the line because of a lack of preparatory index, all right? Adenamine is a cannabinoid. Huh?
You see it lacking because of the lack of...
No preparation for the task at hand. Just that kind of, I hope I do well. You know, it's the effort. It's not, you're not ready to do the task at hand, so your biology can't really scale up. It can be done very quickly. You know, like when everybody says there's no walkthrough in a fight, they're 100% wrong. We can process at high levels. If I can see it coming, I begin to prepare. You know, so I should be looking for the indicators. The problem is the people that believe there's no walkthrough, they don't pay attention until the fight starts. That's really the problem. So the channel is a huge indicator of pre-assault cues and how you can get information from the people you're approaching and get ahead of it. Why don't you do that when you step to the line? You know the task is at hand. I've already outlined it. Step up there and get prepared. Everything that's not shooting should be done before shooting. So we start developing that. So this is your weed right here, cannabinoid. We make it inside of our bodies. It elevates mood, relieves pain, dilates blood vessel, aids respiration. As you notice, the next one with endorphins, relieves pain, induces pleasure, highly addictive to high-risk athletes like myself. Problem is, you got to jump out of more planes, you got to climb more mountains, you got to take harder fights, and eventually you don't get it anymore because the action doesn't produce this. So that's why you see bigger and bigger risk. Surfing is a great idea. It used to be 20-foot waves were as tall as we can ride. Now they're riding 100-foot waves because guys couldn't get enough kick out of 20s or 40s or 60s, and they learned how to toe in, and they're riding 100-foot waves. It's beautiful. It's an incredibly dangerous task. Any lack of concentration results in your imminent death. But that's where the juice is for them now. All right? Oxytocin, social bonding and linking information. So sometimes you'll be training and things will come together. That means you're in a good state. My practice in the morning links a lot of information together. I have new ideas that I can explore. And then serotonin is the afterglow. I don't think I have to explain that one. You feel blissful when you perform well. Okay? We're going to talk about how to get all these things flowing in not only yourself, but your clients. Okay? These are 17 triggers that create flow. It is not bro science. This is neuroscience, and these are things that did it. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was the founder of this, the psychological, and then there's been a lot of good studies. Stephen Kotler's written some good books on it. I highly recommend reading these things because you should be using this, because that's why I get better results sometimes with people than other people do, because I intimately understand how to do these things in a row. So I can pull the biological lever instead of the mental lever. That's why some people, you'll tell them to say something and it works for some people, but it doesn't others. If you start looking at these, what's the most important thing? Intensely focused attention. So the first thing I measure when you come to line is how attentive you are. All right? People are not. The eyes are glancing, the body's fidgeting, so I'll create focus and attention on something. I said it to you over and over. See the dot, call your shot. It's just a way to focus your attention. If you don't have clear goals in the test, what happens? You don't get the results you want. Okay? And how fast does the feedback need to be? It needs to be immediate. If it happens even half a second to a second later, it's too slow. And that's the problem with shooting, is we go and look at the target, come back, and then the feedback has no real change in the course of action. That's why you keep making the same mistake over and over again. If you can get the immediate feedback of predicting the sight and then seeing your prediction be true, then your feedback's immediate. So imagine when you're fighting, when I hit somebody, I know it. When somebody hits me, I know it. How immediate is the feedback? When I miss, I know it. What's the problem with shooting? We don't know those things until it's too late. Now I have really good eyesight, so I can see holes at 25 yards, and that's a problem. It's a trap. It's a real trap. Yeah. I'm not going to degrade my vision. I'd rather have it, but all right.
Brian, is there some of that though, when we change from range environment to actual defensive shooting? If I get an anatomically significant hit, I usually get pretty instant feedback that I got an anatomically significant hit.
Yeah. And that's, but also you're waiting for their response to it. You know, so there's some. So it would be better if I could be calling the shots off center hit, and then when I see that, I can make a change. Which means I'll be 2 or 3, maybe 1 or 2 shots behind, but eminently defendable in court, you know. That's why we have the big argument, you're shooting too fast. No, you're not paying attention. So time doesn't give you control, attention does. That's the real difference. Because I've hit people and know they're done in a fight.
Sure.
And then I've hit a guy and hoped he was done, but he's still smiling at me, so I continue to hit him until he falls. And sometimes I just simply gas myself out because I wasn't really hitting him effectively. And as an older fighter, I learned that what was effective and what was ineffective. So the feedback was much, much better. Sometimes you're just surprised, like on the videos. I mean, sometimes you just say, well, damn, that's unusual, you know? All right, challenge versus skill ratio. It's very important, always have people reaching just a little bit, okay? There's some research, but it's really hard to quantify this, but if the person is very aggressive, alpha male sort of person, they need a big reach. Okay, if you're, and it goes for women too, there's lots of alpha females out there, they need a big reach. My wife needs to be really pressed. So it's interesting, because like Neil gets bored easy. Comes easy, he does it easy. So if I don't make the skills hard enough for him, he'll check out. And he's told me that, I get away with it. I've heard him say it, he doesn't say it in those words, all right? But if I do that to her, I'm gonna overwhelm her. She's going to feel like it's too much, she can't manage it, so modulating ratio and skill challenge is really a hard part of the job. Even though we're shooting the same test, I can get you to focus on things that are of different value for you.
You know, Brian, I think some of it, just as an aside, that what I'm learning, I think it comes down to trust. I have to trust that I can hit it. Otherwise, I don't believe I can hit that one.
That's right.
Still good, I suppose, same as anybody else, but if I don't have that trust, I can't.
So it's interesting as a teacher, if they can't trust you, they don't trust themselves. Trust me on that one. See how I worked that? But it's true. Intuition is trust. I've seen this pattern, I recognize it, therefore I expect myself to act right. Now there's a problem, like firefighters. A city firefighter is no good in a wildfire, and a wildfire is no good in a high-rise, because it's different problems. But if you've seen this shooting pattern over and over and we have a creative environment and you provide the trust that it's outcoming, that's why calling your shots is so important. It's providing predictive trust to the recognition. All right, high consequences. Shooting's pretty high consequences. All right, the higher the consequences, the more present we are. Any of you skydive? You know how big your brain is when you jump out the door? Too big. You can always tell who's not gonna make it too.
I will fly the plane all the way to the scene.
Yep. Man, I climbed out on the first time on that wing of Cessna, first static jump, didn't do any buddy jumps, hung on the wing, he looked at me, said, let go, and I went. You know why? Because I love risk. And I was so alive in them. I still feel the wind, can hear the plane. The plane was a piece of crap, I was really glad to get out of it. All right. The more rich the environment is, the more you stay present. Think about something you did that was so awesome, you can see more color. Before a fight, I could see the dust coming down from the ceiling. I could see the sweat. Yes, that's why we do it. We're there, okay? Deep embodiment, me versus another person, mano of mano, the challenge. And you know what's funny? Even if you don't like that person, if you both give it your best, you'll respect each other at the end of the day. The worst thing in the gym is not knowing who top dog is. I gotta let them fight it out until I get somebody to emerge. And it changes because some guys get hungrier and madder and they step over. It's really hard to be the reigning champion for a long time. If a guy has been in charge of the gym and he's the best fighter in the gym, he's a lousy coach. I'll tell you that right now. John Danaher, if you know who that is, it's 100%. John needs both hips replaced. He's a good roller, but he's got 6-7 world champions going right now. They're all completely different than him. So it's important. Serious concentration, shared clear goals, okay? Good communication, familiarity, equal participation, which is not always equal. Competitive equity is this. We have competitive equity because we delineate people by level of skill, size, gender, because we're trying to get rid of everything that could affect it so you can just compete. I'm gonna tell you this 100%. There's no way a 90-pound woman at the same skill that I'm at can beat me on the mat. That's never possible. So there's competitive equity. Competitive equity in shooting is what? Guns do the work. So that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that I outweigh you by twice your body weight. It only matters that you can shoot the gun. What we're looking for is equal participation, which may be different levels of equal, because not all clients are the same. Hers is going to be a little different than his, and I'm trying to get that participation and skill level so that the person that's really good gets a challenge and the person that's brand new gets a challenge. That's really hard to do. Otherwise, you stabilize it in the middle, and only the middle people are rewarded, and you'll have the high-level people quit because there's nothing for them, and you have the low-level people be overwhelmed and they'll drop out. So you're going to lose a lot of your classes if you're not careful. Risk is the same thing as high consequences. A sense of control. How do you engender control in your class? You give them a choice. I gave you choices all yesterday on your test. You could choose accuracy, you could choose speed, you could choose performance. I even asked you which drill you wanted to shoot next. I asked if you wanted to go to lunch because it's your class, not mine. Nothing wrong with that. What is the dangers of that? Democracy. Doesn't work. All right, so if nobody can make a decision, I'll just say go. You know, I have to be the final arbiter. Close listening. Most people don't listen to the information, they listen to respond. They've already decided what they're going to say to you. When you listen, make sure you haven't already filled in what you think is about to happen. Listen to what they say. Several times I've looked at you and say, see, there's the thing. You said it. And then I repeat your words to you. You're like, yeah, I never thought about it that way. You don't even listen to yourself particularly well. So why do you listen to other people? Why do you have this expectation that outside of you, you're a better listener? Listen to yourself. First victory is there. When somebody offers something in class, unless it's so wrong, I always try to say yes. Yes, but what else? Yes, and. And then my wife taught me this lesson. You know, we talked about world domination because it's pinky in the brain, right? I want to dominate the world. That's my nature. I do. I want to be the best that I can be. I want to get out there and do it. And she said, well, if you want to be known in the firearms industry, you better start saying yes to everything that comes your way. Because I grew up in that quiet professional environment. And it's insidiously bad a habit, you know, that I'm not going to do things. I'm quietly going to go about my task. I can tell you for 40 years, it didn't serve me in a martial environment. So I took every podcast, took every opportunity. John said, you want to do this? I said, yes. I don't want to say yes, but I did it anyway and I grew. And I continue to grow from it because I always say yes to things that matter and I take those chances. Mostly in your life, you'll regret the things you don't do, not the things you did. Now, there are things that I did I truly regret, but that's a different category. But if you get a chance and you feel like you want to do it, but you're too afraid, you should say yes. Because we don't want to be without fear, we just don't want it to control us. And that's what always say yes means. True in sales, right? Yeah. Okay. You apply creativity to what you do so you don't get bored. Boredom is a real problem. What do you tell kids that are bored? Go find something interesting. Tell yourself the same thing. Are there a lot of interesting problems in shooting? There are. There are. There's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of interesting things inside the way you respond to stress, and there's a lot of interesting things that you can do. You can get better at shooting just because you're interested in it.